What's up, y'all? Welcome to Methy Monday, episode 2. Um, Here is where I get to kind of talk about my experience with using crystal meth, because I really want to create these like avenues and pipelines for people to be educated on the real healing of it. And I think it requires us to talk about what that real experience is like, because I think a lot of the times we fabricate a lot of it. Like, it's all in Breaking Bad, that TV show, and then when we go out into the street and we see people using it, we don't really like see it for its depth. We can only see it in a moment and from a surface level. And I think a lot of times when we see people using certain substances, we don't really have a certain like method of interacting with people who are going through that. And so I think it's important for us to really kind of get like a deeper understanding of what this experience is like. But while I'm talking about my experience, I hope that my experience is not generalized or extended to the experience of other people. My story is not the same as every substance user. So I hope that we begin to create space to respect human beings and individual human beings who are going through substance use issues that many people experience. I don't think one person's experience defines everyone's experience. I think that my experience will give us some insight so that we can start to dig deeper into other people's experiences and how to create a real recovery environment from this. So let's get right into it. The meth use. It started in 2014. I'm not going to tell the story of before I used meth because I don't feel safe doing that yet. So I'll just talk about what it was like to just try the substance. The first time I tried meth, I smoked it out of a bubble. I also want to throw out a disclaimer before I start talking about this, that this shit gets so triggering. So if you got, like, I can't deal with blood, I can't deal with drugs, I can't deal with violence, I can't deal with, you probably should take a pause or get a therapist with scope of practice that would allow you to listen to me. Because what I experienced is quite triggering. If you have used before and some like mentionings of paraphernalia trigger you, might want to reconsider whether you want to listen to what I'm about to talk about. So I just want to put out that disclaimer. It's not my desire to make anyone feel squeamish. It's not my desire to make anyone feel afraid. It's not my desire to make anyone feel any kind of way about substances. I'm just telling my truth, but I just know that it can be a lot for some people. It's really intense for me, living with the mental health conditions that I have. So I just want to throw out that space that if you do not have the mental health space, the physical health space, any kind of health space to hear my sickness, please take your space. And I respect that, absolutely. So that's the disclaimer. In 2014, when I was like using meth, I was homeless out in Golden Gate Park. And I was, I guess, like trying to figure out how to just survive homelessness, because that was an experience that I had never been homeless before. And I was homeless in San Francisco, a city that I'm not even from. So it was like I was not very acclimated to my surroundings. I didn't really know how to geographically like tell where I was even. And so there was all that learning while homeless. And I guess like I started noticing that a lot of people who were homeless out here were willing to use these substances. And I was like, what is it? Like, what is it about these substances that make people feel like this shit is cool. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I would see it and I'd be like, that shit don't look cool. But something tugged on me to, I don't know, see what they were experiencing. So I had, smoked meth out of a bubble, and then they have these like green toilets out here that are outside, and we call them space toilets because like when you go up to them, the door slides open like that, and you just walk into it, and it feels like you're in like this weird like space toilet. Anyway, so I was in the space toilet with a buddy of mine and some other buddies, and they were shooting up, and I was curious as to how they even do that, and so they talked it out at first, and then they handed me one and said, hey, you want to try and do it on yourself? And I was like, alright. Or maybe I was like, give me one, let me try it on myself. That's usually how it goes. It's never like, hey, you want some drugs? It's more like, no, give me those drugs. That's my real personality when it comes to substances. And I know that via experience. So I had, tried that little shot, you know what I mean? And the psychosis from it was always just like crazy to me. Like my brain would just completely trip out, like in ways that I just was never even understanding of. Like there would be times where I thought that, if I'm doing this meth, I could stay awake and I could go dumpster diving. So I'm like walking around the street looking for stuff that people are just throwing away that I could potentially use, but I'm high on meth. So the psychosis becomes the situation where I'm literally hearing voices. There's buses going by. Back then I think it was the 71, and that was going down Haight Street, and the little like, I guess there's like these wires that the bus is attached to, and it would make this whoosh sound when it would go by. Or like electricity snapping, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like high on meth, so I would hear that and I would literally like twitch or like, feel like I'm going to jump out of my body. And I would have to like sit in that high and those, weird, fearful triggers for a good amount of time. I ended up transitioning substances, so like I moved from meth into heroin, and so that's when I started shooting up more. And me and heroin, that was just, I hated heroin because it was such a downer. I was always so sick, like with throwing up and pooping myself out on the street if I took too much or it was really strong. And that's the thing, like I wasn't a needle user before that, so I did not know what in the hell I was doing, and so the amount that I was doing was never educated or informed. It was always just whatever I got from the dealers, whatever I put in the needle. And the thing about heroin is that when I would shoot that up, I would like I would pass out often and nod out like wherever I had did the drug. And that experience, being homeless in San Francisco and nodding off on heroin anywhere I'm at, that's scary. I'm lucky that nothing violent or dangerous really happened to me in those situations, but I know that that's not the case for everyone. So I, at some point, decided to, stick to needles, but go back to crystal meth. And so, and it was an everyday thing. Like, I would do some at a certain time, and I would feel the extreme body, like, upper energy, like it's super warm. My whole body would get super warm. What I was really obsessed with was the flush, which is like when I would put the needle in my arm and I would draw out my own blood into the needle that's called the flush. The sight of that was what I longed for, and then the feeling following that was what I longed for, which was the actual, like, pushing the drug into my veins, and then feeling it just immediately change the nature of my body and my mind. I used needles for like a month or so when I first started using substances, and that quickly I went to the LGBT center out here for a youth meal night to get a gift card for testing, and it's HIV and Hep C testing. And I was 24 years old, and I found out that I had both HIV and Hep C. I remember where I was too when I used that dirty. I remember who I was with when I used the dirty needle. And it's just like, it's hard because, like, I sit with other people who tell me this is how I got HIV story, and I don't share the same sentiments as most people who have HIV. Like, I don't sit with any, like, resentments towards the people that I was sitting with when I used that dirty needle. I know their street name. I don't know their real biological name. You know what I'm saying? And so there's, like, I don't have the space to have too many heavy emotions towards those folks. To be honest, it was my choice to put something into my body. And so for me, when I think about that moment when I was, I think I was at, like, Lincoln and 7th or something like that, where I used this dirty. And, like, for me, it was just more, like, remembering just how much the meth impacted my response to finding out that I had HIV and Hep C. Like, this is the thing. I was going to get that gift card so that I could buy more meth. And so, even though I did the test for HIV and Hep C and found out that I had both, I sure enough got that gift card and went and bought more meth. And my life from there just became a situation where I really was not concerned with how to treat it. I wasn't concerned with stopping using the substance. I wasn't concerned with, oh no, I have HIV, now let me, like, figure out how to not be on the street. Like, nope, I was still on the street. And I did not rush to get the HIV treated. I just kept doing meth, and I just kept running in the streets. And I'm not going to say running in the streets because I was homeless and my energy wasn't there to run. I ended up, like, transitioning from Golden Gate Park to the Castro. And out in the Castro, that's where, like, most of the LGBT folks are. And, I was an absolute, they called me a public nuisance. I literally got charged with that public nuisance. I mean, hey, when you make people see themselves for who they really are, they're going to call you a nuisance. You get on my nerves for making me see myself and all the marks I got. Like, sorry, but I'm not. That's what it was in the Castro, because I would be out in front of Strut. It actually was Magnet back in the day. It was Magnet when it was around the corner on 18th Street. What's that? Yeah, that's 18th Street. Anyway, And I've overdosed in magnets, shooting up heroin, and overdosed on the bathroom floor. Woke up hours later and walked out that bitch. Like, they ended up becoming this organization called Strut. And so they ended up moving around the corner. They, they would put up on this building all the millions of dollars that they would raise towards, HIV prevention and shit like that, and getting folks access to this stuff. And it was like, for who? I'm right outside your building as a black woman with HIV, and I'm transgender. I'm gender non-binary. And it's interesting to be a black queer in San Francisco, where it's supposed to be all liberal and shit. Gays are supposed to have, like, this space to be themselves. And I'm like, y'all motherfuckers are lying. Y'all white gay privileged folks are just as fucked up as a racist person. Just as fucked up. And I stand on that. Because I stood outside of Strut as a black woman with HIV for so many years while they raised all that money and they allocated all that funding to who? And I'm standing, even laying, sleep, right in front of the door. I tried to get treated there at some point, and the person who worked the front desk would try to tell me, you can't come in here. I'm trying to go talk to a doctor about HIV medication. What do you mean I can't come here? Because I stink? Because I'm a meth user? That's how I contracted the shit in the fucking first place. And it's addictive. I don't understand how somebody's supposed to just get an HIV fucking diagnosis, and the next thing you know, they're supposed to have the fucking full heart and consciousness to just stop doing drugs and to stop being homeless and to take a fucking pill and to have sex with people with condoms. That's fucking... The totality of that as the healing mechanism for people living with HIV is fucking gross. I live with HIV, but I have so many other problems outside of that. And I'm not looking to be accepted with my problems. I'm looking for people who want to help talk to me about what are the fucking solutions and the real ones. But as somebody who's shot up dope, as somebody who lives with HIV, I went to rehab. And I ended up getting in relationships with people where it was just like, they wanted me to be so different. But they could not see that I was never given any resources that could help me change. They'll pill HIV. That's fantastic to get people who are tweaking on meth undetectable. But how do you talk to them about the substances that they're using if they don't have the mental coherency to hear? How do you give someone some sense of security and stability when they don't want to even live within your housing infrastructure? There are many people who don't want to be housed in San Francisco because the housing spaces are not quality enough for the disabilities that they even live with. And so they find that it's easier to live on the street and just do substances. When we start sitting and looking at what are the real infrastructure problems that could even lend to someone being forgotten by us normal people. What are the things that us normal people do on a routine basis daily that make it where we can neglect particular people in our community and allow them to be harmed and allow them to get sick based off of our judgments and our stigmas and our negligence as a humanity? How do I fix that perspective? I had to do drugs. I couldn't just look at these transitional age youth who were queer out here and using meth and say, hey, don't do drugs. Now I was like, no, there's something about this that's going on. I got to figure it out. So I'm going to actually join the crowd. I'm going to do the substance that these beautiful transitional age youth who are gay out in San Francisco. This is 2014 when I met these folks. I'm going to figure out what the fuck is going on. Because why is it that this particular group of people are so impacted by this substance and this homelessness and this disease? Why is it? And then I start to get it. Some communities of humans are so toxically gross with the institutionalization that they find comfortable with them, and how that institutionalization helps them profit somehow, some way. They'll try to use it to stifle other humans, to make themselves feel greater. But this is the thing. When we try to feel greater in our own human systems, we neglect the fact that we aren't as powerful as nature. When we create these infrastructures to disrupt nature, nature has a course that it'll take us on. So, that's my podcast for today. That's the amount of energy I have to give about this topic for today. Feel free to drop questions in the comments. Feel free to, let's push the conversation further. Let's figure out, what else is it that we can talk about here in this space. And I'm just going to keep showing up on Mondays and keep talking and figuring out where this is going to go. Because I know that, again, I need this for my mental health. Even just talking a little bit about what I experienced helps me go out into this Monday and, not have to feel like I'm compartmentalizing a real life that I lived to feel normal around people. I don't think that that's going to help me. I think that the honesty that I hold in my heart may help me and a whole bunch of other motherfuckers too. So, happy Methy Monday. If you got, a substance use story that you want to share, feel free to hit me up in my DMs so that we can start getting these conversations put out in the open, in the air, so that we can figure out what solutions we have to really heal. So, I'll see y'all. Have a great week. Peace.